welcome to the Scene Weekly podcast, where we harken back to our college debate days and pick two movies of the same theme to attempt to fare the unstill waters between one more drink and letting the body and mind heal. This week's episode is focused on recovery from addiction, with Smashed taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back against Denzel Washington's Flight. Come join Jonathan and Steven and Alex for another week of hopefully less plot chatter and copious more film banter. We are Scene Weekly, and welcome to our world, Alex.
Welcome.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
We're doing good, man. We're doing good. We're happy that you took the time out to join us on this podcast. Kind of briefly, I'll kind of go into how I met Alex here. I was living in LA, working for a restaurant group, and got suddenly information that I was moving to Memphis. And I had only been to Memphis a couple of times. Didn't really know the city that well. And what I do when I go to different cities is I go to bars and try and see the people, meet the people. And Alex was one of the first person that he was my bartender, and he befriended me, and we've been friends ever since. So thanks for coming on the podcast, joining us.
Oh man,
What was the
Thank
drink?
you for having me.
What was the drink you ordered? Do either of you remember?
It might have been
Boulevardier.
an old fashioned.
That was Boulevardier.
You're right.
There we go.
See, the bartender always remembers.
Bartender's always going to remember.
I'm pretty sure I called you Boulevardier until I got your number too. Until it's like, you know what I mean? Like everybody, hey, Coors Light. They don't realize I'm calling them by their name. You know?
Yeah.
Did you have a second or third after that?
I had quite a few through my time in Memphis. It was a good time. Sometimes regrettable, but here we are now talking about recovery. And this is a cool episode because, I definitely had some late nights with you, Alex, and we definitely partied a lot, drank a lot, and just to see you, take this new turn in life has been really, really cool. And I'm just super proud of you, man.
Man, thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. It's been 4 years as of August 24th.
So wow,
it's been a long ride. Yeah, a lot of cool things have happened since. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
How's your sleep?
Absolutely.
Your sleep must be just terrific, man. Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, just depends on the day. I would say that the first few weeks when I quit drinking, I think my body depended on kind of being like towards the end there. I was black. I was partying until I could not remember anymore. About 4 or 5 times a week, sometimes every day of the week, and your body that's how your body is used to going to bed. So I wouldn't sleep the first few days, maybe 3 hours at a time.
Yeah.
But then after I found a job, honestly, and then started working out and going to this trainer a whole bunch, I would go in there and I'd tell him, I can't sleep at night. And his name is John. And John would be like, oh, we can fix that. And he would hand me 35-pound weights, 35-pound weights. And we would do bench presses. I remember I could barely bench press 100 pounds. And then within a year, I'm putting up 4 plates, 225 pounds, and just finding out things about my body that I'd never, ever figured out before. I started doing yoga and Pilates and I really dove into the whole exercise thing to kind of keep myself leveled for a while. But as far as sleep goes, it's still, it's one day at a time, as they say in programs, every day is different. Sometimes you're awake, you're manic, and sometimes you're just assed out real fast, I'll talk about it.
That's the whole purpose of this, right?
Yeah.
Ed Lattimore, I don't know if you know who Ed Lattimore is. Basically, he wrote a book called Sober Letters to My Drunken Self, of which I've read. And, I've gone down the path of trying to understand the complexity or the simplicity of alcoholism and, how to, I guess, get better at it, to be honest with you, or just to stop drinking less. And as everyone pretty much says in the path of trying to guide people on how to take the first step or second or third is basically, if you are taking those steps, you need to find something to replace it and
Yep.
exercise is often the case. And so
Yep.
I mean, just myself and the over drinking or overabundance of my own. So, for example, I mean, prior to June 6th of this year, I think I remember the date exactly. Yeah, I was drinking every single day as well, like a couple bottles of wine, and I just stopped immediately and decided that I wasn't going to drink for the next 4 months. I have had some drinks since, to be clear, but that had to be supplemented with something in terms
Mm-hmm.
of just extra exercise, extra focus on something. And how was that initially for you, just off the bat of just not only, I guess it's past the first week of drinking or lack thereof and the exercise. Like, when did the exercise really come into play for you?
Uh, it's a good question. So
Was it immediate?
when, yeah, it was when I first quit drinking, August 24th, 2020 was day 5 of a 4-day bender that where I don't remember 4 days. I was partying for
Oh
4 days
wow.
basically. And
Yeah.
I wrecked my car after leaving I was at a pool party at a actually at an apartment complex that Steve I used to live at. And yeah, I was there. And I went to a bar, as iconic as it was. I'm not going to say where it was, but I
Sure.
got there and I blacked out. And somebody who lived very nearby took my keys, and I knew where he was going to put them, so I went and grabbed them. And then I fell
Oh
asleep at the
damn.
wheel. I fell asleep at the wheel, drove
Oh
off the side of the road, man. Had a very, very, very horrible little incident with that. I was had drove home off on 2 tires about a mile. Didn't get a DUI or anything. I'd been drinking like all day, but I
yeah.
didn't get a DUI or anything because I was really, really close to my house. I just drove home on the 2 tires, and then uh, I
Yeah.
had, like I said, you're up for 4 days. I had a really vivid freaking hallucination that was kind of religious. And
Yeah.
I woke up the next day and said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not doing this anymore. And I remember I got on Facebook and I posted day 1. And the only people that knew what that was were other people that were alcoholics. And somebody reached out to me that's in Alcoholics Anonymous and said, hey, I know what this is. Good for you. Are you ready to start taking these steps? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I am so ready to admit that I'm an alcoholic. Ever since I would say ever since quarantine, I had to do those 2 weeks by myself. It was rough. You know what I mean? Like it was
Yeah.
just horrible. I was drinking by
Yeah.
myself,
Yeah.
and then I shouldn't say she, but she was like, "Come to AA." I got there, and somebody told me they're like, and it was. I'm sorry, I didn't go to AA. It was all online back then because it was you couldn't go to a meeting; you had to do it all online.
COVID.
Yeah,
Right.
COVID.
Right.
So somebody said to me, they're like, hey, go pick an exercise. Do you have a bike? And I was like, yeah. And I literally started calling into work. I was a freight broker at the time and said, hey, I'm not
Yeah.
coming in the next few days. I wrecked my car. I don't want to do it. And they were pissed. But I would just hop on my bike and I would ride the green line here in Memphis all the way from the middle of the city to the very outskirts of town. And I started doing that and doing that. I lost 20 pounds in like a month, dude.
Damn.
That's how bloated I was, I went from
Yeah. Yeah.
225
Yeah.
to one to like 225 to 205. And then when I started working out with John, it was like 10 pounds. And then I hovered around 190 while my body kind of shifted, I guess you'd say. Um, and I think the original question was how fast it took. It was that quick. I had to do something to keep my mind going. Like because you're so used to just like going to the bar, going, hang out in your backyard, blah, 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 blah. And it was just immediate. And I had to do these kind of things. And once I found weights, oh my gosh, that was like the end of it. I was like, I've got a new addiction. All I want to do is look at myself in the mirror and buy clothes I'll never wear again. I still have some of them, and it's like I just want to celebrate this new body and all this work. And you know, it's been a fun few years. But yeah, exercise is a big part of it. That's how I met my girlfriend, was at yoga. which is so cliche.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh, it's so cliche to say it out loud, but yeah, like all the exercise really changed my life. Mind Body House, shout out
So I have
Memphis,
a
Tennessee.
I've got to I got to dial into this cliche as it's coming up now. So I have somebody who's probably got can triple down on this. He went to Paris and got engaged in front of the Eiffel Tower on Saturday to his yoga instructor.
That's what I'm talking about.
So
Oh, it's
there's
so cliche.
two cliches just double down right there. So
But
I
think
think he's
about how
got you beat
cliche it is.
right in front
Think
of the
about how
Eiffel Tower.
cliche. Think about this cliche. How many times do people meet at bars and they have this tumultuous, maybe even violent relationship, and it lasts for 3 months, and then they break up, and then they find the next cliche in their next one night stand and try to turn it into something that it's not. So we're all living in a cliche.
Yeah.
What matters is what really matters is that I guess that we show up to our own lives, right? And try to make sure that it's all, I guess, just a real relationship rather than something that's based on drinking or just based on, I guess, sex, based on a real
Yeah.
connection, which is what a lot of people that are suffering from alcoholism or disease or bad coping mechanisms, codependency. They just want a real connection, and that's the cure for it, I guess you'd say, is finding real connection with other humans and community.
I had you mentioned something along the lines of I guess a come to Jesus moment to some extent when you crashed the car and then you drove home on the two tires. And I had a question later just to see, like, was that the moment or were there moments like before that where you were like tried to quit and you couldn't, or was that the last end all be all of
Oh
you
man,
you saw basically cold turkey from there on?
the first time I ever tried to quit drinking, I was
Yeah,
14. I was 14 years old, actually.
right. Wow.
Yeah, I was 14, and I had a group of buddies. We're all most of us are still pretty close. And I went to like this Christian churchy, your parents get rid of you for a weekend kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I remember opening up to one of the counselors about the kind of stuff we were doing on the weekends, and he was like, I want you to know this is not normal. It's like, this is not what normal 14-year-old, 15-year-old boys are doing. He's like, I mean, because we were
Yeah.
doing, we were doing some hood rat kind of shit, I guess, when we were kids. And, partying at 14 the way we did, and like, we were like professionals. And I
Wow.
tried when I was 14. And then again when I must have been about 22, and then again when I was 26, and that was when I really geared down so I could graduate college. Um, and then at about the age of 30, that was when I kind of gave it all up and went back to drinking and partying. Yeah, Steven, I think I met you when I was like 32,
32,
about
33. Yeah, I think something
8 years
around
ago.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
that's
was I was
wild, man.
kind of in the whole. I'd say the incident that really made things happen was, after college you graduate and you don't know what the hell to do with your life, so you're just like, hey, whatever,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna party.
And
Um,
you grew up, born, raised, and have lived in Memphis your entire life. This is one of the things like I was so impressed by when I met Alex was wherever I went with him, whatever restaurant, bar, music venue we stepped into, he would know six, seven, eight people. And yeah, Memphis is a small town in that regard, I guess, but like he knew everybody, and everybody knew him, and everybody was friends with him. And I kind of want to know, like, what's your relationship with the people in Memphis now? Because you still know a lot of people, and like, how have they embraced you after you've gotten sober?
That's a good question.
Now when I go out, it's awesome. Again, people do see me, and the people that do know me, they do want to catch up and see how I'm doing. And and then a lot of people will say, "Hey, I want to talk to you somewhere else, sometime. Can I ever like?" And it's just become this new way of life where I get to really connect with people, because when you're just drunk at a bar, you're not really talking, you're not really making friends. You're just you're making drinking buddies. So now I get to like really, really, really make some real connections with people that are based on real conversations and just like crazy banter. And a lot of people will call me when they're a lot of people call me when they wake up the next day and they need somebody to talk to, and they're
Yeah.
like, what can I do? And I'm like, I love it. Call me whenever, man. And I'll check up on them. I'll check on them. I, without getting into anything too bad about, with the movie and all, when it comes to guys, I'm a little bit more like, talk to me about all of the things you want to talk about. Let's talk about it all. With girls, it's very much like, oh, you know what? I'm so happy for you. I'm so glad for you that you're ready to make this mistake. Let me forward this email to to somebody else, to another girl that's in the
Yeah.
program, kind of
Yeah.
thing. It's so much nicer now when I go out in the bars and I go out in Memphis and I see people that I've known forever, and it's just like, oh my gosh, you look so different now that you've been, you look healthy, you look great. So it's almost like becoming a new me and getting to know myself more, and being able to almost not cover up, but go back, retrace old drunk Alex's steps in a way that has a little bit more credibility, a little bit more of a philosophy, a little bit more a little bit more guided, I'd say, where I can actually be a part of these people's lives in a way that is beneficial to them, rather than, yeah, I know where to go for that. Yeah, I know the next party is here, the next party is there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can get you into the late night bars, that kind of thing. And it feels a little bit more adult, feels a little bit more rewarding. Shit.
Did you have to effectively break up with your friends group at that moment 4 years ago?
Kind of just happens naturally. Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah. It's like, what are you going to do now? Well, we're not going to go to the bar. So
Right.
good luck, guys. Yeah.
I remember going to watch the Super Bowl in 2022, maybe. And, I always go places and I'm like, hey, do you have non-alcoholic beers, near beers, fake beers? I call them fake beers. Uh, and they handed me my friend's beer and the fake beer to him. And we both
Oh,
took a sip
damn.
at the same
What?
time. And I'm like, yeah, it was at a bar downtown Memphis, and I looked at them and I was like, I didn't know this was a cider, and so it just became like this. This I kind of realized that if I was going to be hanging out with them, at least for the first while, I couldn't be around when they were drinking, and
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
I
that
and
makes
then
sense.
date and then to kind of even further the question, it made dating hard because you're so used to going somewhere and having a couple of drinks and lowering your inhibitions to where you can talk about things that like dating was hard. I think the first year I didn't even like go on but like maybe two dates. And I remember being on like,
Yeah.
God, I even got on Tinder, and Bumble and Hinge is where it was at, right? And I even got on Tinder, and I remember I would say like, I don't
Okay.
drink anymore. Blah,
Steven's
blah.
still on Tinder.
Say what?
Steven's still on Tinder.
No,
Tinder.
no, no.
I
I'm not
mean,
on Tinder. I've used Hinge. I don't
Uh-huh.
do Tinder or
Uh-huh.
Bumble.
Sure. Sure.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
So there you
Hinge
go.
and Bumble, man. Tinder is for Tinder's for late night
Steven.
hookups. Let's be
Bots.
real.
Yeah.
So yeah, like even but yeah, even dating was weird because they'd want to get drunk, and I'd be like sitting there, and it just gets annoying. And a lot of people, they expect to get their cookie, I guess, at the end of a if they get to like a certain level of drunk. And I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna call you an Uber, and I'm gonna never call you again. It's like it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
awkward. It was super awkward, and God, or the early stages of dating was just terrible because you know what, you really, and this will be something else I'm sure we talk about with one of the movies. You can't do any of that until you really get to know yourself again, and really figure
Right.
out kind
Yeah.
of who you are by way of what you've been ignoring about yourself for a long time, and you have to do some of this work just so you can even like kind of step into that unsafe zone of being vulnerable with people at that level. And there was a lot to learn about myself and about who I am. And I'm glad I've done a lot of that. And now I'm in a fucking great relationship. Holy crap. It's been amazing, And I couldn't
That's
have
awesome.
done this. I couldn't have been in this relationship, with this amazing girl. She would have just, you know, she would have scoffed at me if I ever talked to her when I
Was
was
it hot
blackout drunk.
yoga? Was it
Yes.
hot yoga? Look at
Hell
you,
yeah.
Alex,
Hot
getting
yoga.
after it.
Yeah, dude. Hot
That's
yoga.
amazing.
I have to remind myself to drink lots of water and eat lots of salty food. We had this conversation last night. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I was like, "This salty ass soup's giving me life." And she was like, "Yeah, you should really eat more salt so you can actually last in these classes." I'm sure, man, it's hard. I mean, some of these people are just, and that was another thing about it too. The community of yoga and finding a spot in Mind Body House in Memphis, Tennessee, by the way, uh, is that community that I found in that has just been so rewarding. And yeah, that's oh, I was gonna say there's just there's some really cool things. You know, you got into a bar or you're going to a wedding and getting blackout, you're going to a party and you're drinking way too much. And none of that has ever matched these moments in these classes where I felt like a fucking samurai, you know, where I'm like,
Yeah.
holy crap, you know, this leg just went over my head. How the hell did I do that? You know? And then you know, my body can twist like this now, you know, and all of this kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Just self discovery, dude. And then God, it's been a blessing. I'm even thinking about uh taking some teacher training classes, and you know, it'll be a lot more expensive than getting an ABC card in Memphis or in Tennessee, which is an alcoholic beverage
Yeah.
commission,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, uh, and it'll just keep paying me out every single year, every single class I can teach, and it'd be cool if I could be able to share some of these experiences about recovery, about giving up booze in particular, you know, with some of these people that are in there and they're trying to find new ways of life. And it's cool telling folks like, hey, I don't drink, because then the real shit happens once people know that about you. I'm telling you, they know that, and then they start asking you about all kinds of things, and then uh, that sense of community and connection really comes with that vulnerability.
Let's get into some movie conversation.
Yeah.
Jonathan, do you want to go first with Flight?
I'll take Flight first. How about
Okay.
that?
All
Yeah.
right.
So we give a breakdown very quickly in the synopsis. I don't know if you've seen our wildly acclaimed podcast that's on YouTube, watched by 50 people a week, but here we go. So my movie is Flight. It is 138 minutes. It's directed by Robert Zemeckis, who you may know, Forrest Gump on Castaway and all of the Back to the Future flicks. Terrific. I mean, just a Spielberg protege, if you will. Year 2012. It's rated, I believe, R. I actually didn't even look it up. I just assumed it was R, considering the fact that the first 2 minutes is full nudity. And the genre is action. Rotten Tomatoes has given it a score of 77%. The budget was $31 million, which, mind you, was far, far less than pretty much everyone that was involved with this. They purposely took a massive pay cut, like a 90% less. Box office, 161. And here is the synopsis. Pretty simple, but a lot of complexity going on. Commercial air pilot Whip Whitaker.
What a name.
The one thing I would change about this movie would be that, but it's a pretty cool name at the same time. Who's played by Denzel Washington. He has a problem with drugs and alcohol, though so far he's managed to complete his flights safely. His luck, coincidentally, has run out when a disastrous mechanical malfunction, coincidentally, sends his plane hurtling toward the ground. Whip pulls off a miraculous crash landing that results in only 6 lives lost. Shaken to the core, he vows to get sober, but when the crash investigation exposes his addiction, he finds himself in an even worse situation. Pretty intense starting off the bat. Not only just the sex scene, of, if you will, but that was tame compared to drinking excessively while getting on a flight, and then secondarily, you're the pilot that has to go and manage the lives of however many people are on this flight, which is a very frightening thought. You know, of all of any job for that matter, maybe a neurosurgeon getting drunk would be much worse than somebody
Yeah.
flying your plane. But flying a plane, not so wise. But addiction takes its toll on everybody to some extent. What'd you think about the movie, Alex? Do you think it portrayed addiction well? I thought so.
Yeah, I really did. As far as the portrayal of a person that's using his ego to tell himself that he's choosing a way of life. Yeah, that he's made. Oh, I have a wife and kid that I don't even talk to. You know why? Because I choose to drink. It's very
Yeah.
August Wilson. It's very the one of my favorite plays is Fences, who he actually plays the person who's like,
Oh
Yeah.
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 he's like, oh, I don't have to love you. It's very reminiscent of that. I've said this to people before. I was like, what the hell did Denzel do? Like, well, he's played this same character so many times. Like, what happened? But who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe nothing. Maybe he just connects with that. He can play that role really well. It's a in the hoop. Just swish right there. So yeah, it did a really good job. It just portrays how powerless people can really become to it very well. Yeah.
Yeah, even taking flight, quite literally and figuratively. It's an interesting one. Yeah, his portrayal I thought was excellent, and also as a backstory, like he actually didn't drink purposely in the making of the film, although he did gain a significant amount of weight so that he could portray more of like a bloatedness,
Hmm.
and somebody who would be drinking to excess consistently. But he purposely didn't want to get into character for whatever reason. I don't know the actual reason, but I would imagine maybe he has his own demons to some extent and didn't want to go down that path,
Right.
which I have in my family as well, so I can kind of fully understand and embrace that ideology. But um, Stephen, what did you think?
Yeah, I thought it was a definitely good representation of how alcoholism can grip you and how you can just, like you said, kind of put it off and say like I can function and still do my job and do it well, and pass the blame somewhere else. He had his that friend, the Banana Man, John Goodman,
Yep.
that would just basically show up in his life whenever he needed to be. But I think the Banana Man cared for him in a way, but they weren't really friends. He was providing him
No,
something.
no, of
Um,
course they're not friends. And Goodman
yeah,
was also went to Alcoholics Anonymous for a number of years before the filming of this is too. Um, Goodman's not your friend. He's definitely a supplier, and he seems like your friend, but he's there for a particular
exactly. He
reason, and that
seems like he's your best friend that he has, but he doesn't have your
yeah,
best intentions at heart.
not at
And
all.
I've definitely known people in my life in my 20s and 30s and stuff like that like, yeah, all you want to do is just get drunk and that's it. And there's
Yeah.
no depth there.
Remember when they remember when they he picked him up at the hospital. He's like, I'm gonna take you down to a little college town where I live. He was definitely
Hmm.
looking at money. He's like, we're just gonna party like it's no good intentions. And then I think that's when he said, no, I'm gonna go to my dad's farm for a little while, right? You know? And
Yeah,
and that's when he had made the decision he was gonna quit drinking. Or he was gonna try to quit drinking. Yeah, John
it didn't
Goodman,
last
man.
long.
Mm-mm. Didn't last long. But yeah, I remember that. I remember that scene well, and I remember looking at John Goodman, and I was like, "Look at you, Cha-Ching, and you're just trying to milk it as much as you can." It's such a good portrayal of a
Yeah.
of a pusher, man. Yeah.
I have a I guess a trans I have a secondary conversation and question for the both of you to some extent. So when he was going to the farm and he was tossing out all the booze that he can find in the house or the farm, um, I kind of like those moments. It's the moment, at least, of taking that first step. Maybe there's like 1,000 steps before that, but like they actually be like, God damn it! Like clearly, I cannot control this. Clearly, I have to actually take a step to prevent myself. At least I'm on a farm. Probably not, I would have to drive somewhere to get liquor, but at least I can surround myself with at least a few minutes, if you will, of making that drive, of getting away from alcohol. So I was wondering if either of you have actually had one of those situations where you're just like, fuck this, man. Like, I got to like pour it all down the drain. I myself have, I haven't done that with alcohol, but there's, it's going to sound ridiculous, but I've done that consistently with food. And I'm like, God damn it. Like, why is it that it's like 8 p.m. at night and I'm eating my like sixth ice cream sandwich? I'm like, this is so ridiculous. And I literally the next morning would be like, fuck all of this ice. The amount of times I've actually done this is it's way too high. But like, I would
Dude,
be like,
that's
I
what
gotta
I'm
get rid
doing
of it.
now.
Yeah.
I'm going through it right now. Yeah. I'm in a relationship and I'm fat. I'm back in the 190s. I'm back in the 190s. I got down to 173. I was stealth, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, it's M&Ms and it's Starbursts. Like I'm like, oh gosh, look, the fun size.
See, I
The
don't even
fun
want to
size
talk about
pack
this.
is
I don't.
Fun size.
Not fun enough.
Yeah.
You got to get like six. Honestly, I have. This even got down when I was training for a race that I ran recently. It got down to pretzels and popcorn. I narrowed it down, and I was able to like not get stuff. It was like cupcakes and ice cream sandwiches and like kettle cooked salt and vinegar chips. I was able to remove those. That was like the bottom of that fat pyramid, and it kept going up and up and up, and I eventually became like just very thin and very focused. But it took like a full year to get there. But at the end, I was like, what are these goddamn gluten-free pretzels doing in the fucking house? And I would literally like dump them out the next morning. But I was wondering, because when I was watching that, it reminded me of my actions, which I've done plenty of times. But have either of you done that with alcohol? Just being like, I can't have this around, and just pouring it out or throwing it away or something?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had moments where like I woke up a little bit too hungover, and there was still half a bottle of whiskey or something like that. It's like I don't even want to have this smell in my kitchen or
Yeah.
anything like that, and it just like done with that. So yeah, I've never had the Denzel Washington moment of just like, cases of beer and handles of liquor just down the drain. But like, I've definitely like half a bottle of whiskey. Like, I don't even want to think about that in my kitchen right now.
Yeah.
Man, I remember when I quit drinking in 2020, when maybe 2 or 3 days in, I had a roommate at the time, and he goes, "So what are you going to do with the bar?" Because I had man, I had a spread, and it wasn't like you go in there and he's got like some bullshit famous grouse, and he's got like some PBRs, and you can tell these are all things that like whenever he would take people out to the farm to party, this is just stuff that's been left there. This is
Yeah.
cheap. Let's go to the lake booze. You know what I mean? I had, dude,
Yeah.
I had like Macallan, and I had a couple of Brunellos. Are you familiar with
Yeah, of
some
course.
really good? Yeah, I had at least $1,000 worth of stuff that was just sitting around, just not necessarily collecting dust, but it was like, I had a Weller 12, I had just a bunch of stuff, and
Yeah.
Sean looked at me and he goes, "So what are you going to do with it?" Because he was still drinking. I knew what he was asking me, and I was like, "You can have the Buffalo Trace." I was like, "You can
Yeah.
have the Buffalo Trace." And I called some
Yeah.
bartender friends, and I was just like, "Who wants this? Come pick it up." I remember a bartender, a friend of mine that works at an Italian spot here in town. I gave him like my, gosh, Steven, what's it called? Like my Campari's, Amaros. I gave him all my Amaros.
Amaros, yeah.
Uh, yeah, and then I think I gave some vodka to somebody that I owed money to, and I gave it all away, and I was like, I'm done, completely over it, and
Yeah.
but yeah, I remember watching that, and one other time that I'd quit drinking, I remember, and this was after, and this is actually movie related. Me and a friend were decided to play a drinking game. We're like, let's make a drinking game out of an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and let's make it. We take a shot every time someone dies. I'm like, okay, that works. And we chose Total Recall. Stupid.
Oh
So
God.
yeah, and I remember I had like a gallon or whatever. It's like a half gallon of it was Buffalo Trace, and Yeah, I had a half gallon of that. Next thing you know, I wake up the next morning, I have like this much left of it. We drank all of it. I just poured it all out. And I was like, I'm never drinking again. This was a horrible decision. And I didn't drink for like,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know, maybe a month after that. But, my body just had to, that was stupid. But yeah, I've done it several times. Man,
Good,
God,
good on,
good
good
question.
on, good on you, by the way, for the fact that you're actually quitting drinking in the middle of the goddamn pandemic. Because like
Yeah.
that's when people ratcheted up. Like
Yeah.
everyone I knew,
there was nothing else to do.
That wasn't even drinking. I mean, this is primarily in New York that I'm talking about, that I have
Yeah.
experience with. Everybody was effectively an alcoholic at that moment, or I should say, most of my friends were drinking probably at least a bottle of wine a night, if not two or
Yeah.
three, and pretty consistently. And the fact that you're like, nope, I'm out.
Nope.
August. That
Yeah.
was like 6 months,
End
not
of
even.
summer. And I should be honest, now that I think about it, I should be honest. My original intention was 30 days. I was like, I'm gonna take a month away, a month off, and then I think that community in Alcoholics Anonymous and just making friends with sober people in general uh, helped me realize like I needed. It was like, all right, I'll just go longer. 30 days is up. I don't feel like drinking again. 30 became 3 months. 3 months became 6 months. And then once I got to where I was about to hit a year, um, I remember this would be like the first person that I was kind of dating at the time was like, I didn't even know you when you drank. She was like, but I don't think you should ever go back. And then that's when I was like, all right,
That's
I'm going to go
cool.
5 years. She's like,
Yeah,
she was like,
yeah.
from, because I remember she tried to tell people that like she was talking to me and they'd be like, what? That crazy guy, like that crazy
Yeah.
asshole. That's so embarrassing. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going back. But yeah, so yeah, middle of pandemic, August, and I wanted out of my house like everybody else. And it was, and
Yeah.
yeah, it became dangerous. It became dangerous. What used to be, and not to steal from Smashed, but what used to be funny just became dangerous and scary. And wrecking your car is not a fucking joke.
No.
Yeah. Jeez.
And that is frightening. I have to take it back to the movie to some extent. I mean, this is a movie podcast while we're
Yes,
here.
please.
So I have, before we actually, get too deep into the rabbit hole, which I'm sure we can replicate on Smash and get into the details there. But I have to say something that came to me that was readily apparent. And I think we've talked about this on Scorsese on The Departed being like utilizing the same song over and over and
Yeah.
over again. I think 4 times is the last time you counted. But this is a weird one for me. And two actors, John Goodman and Denzel Washington, on the movie Fallen and the Rolling Stones' Sympathy for the Devil, both were used in both movies, and both actors were in both movies. And they're always in scenes where like it's very, I would say, dramatic. I mean, the song itself yields itself to drama. I have nothing else to say about this, but it was just something that immediately came to my brain. I was like, I wonder if there's like a spreadsheet or database of like songs that have been used in multiple movies with the same characters or the same actors. And but it was extremely apparent in my mind for whatever it's worth. And I was like, this shouldn't be that apparent. I don't know why my brain is going to this strange level here, but nonetheless, Sympathy for the Devil. If you, I'm big fan of Fallen. Didn't do well in a Rotten Tomatoes score, but the tomometer. How do you even say it? But
Tomato
I'll have
meter.
to say the last one. Tomato meter. Is that what it is? Look
I
at
think
that.
that's
I don't
it.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the director, Mr. Robert Z, he actually said that not a single scene was left on the cutting room floor. Like everything was used.
Oh,
And
wow.
Flight?
I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, what? How is that? He said some scenes were shortened, but he's like, everything we shot was used basically. It's like, holy
That is
That's
a pretty
incredible.
long movie.
I've never,
But,
Yeah.
I'm sure there are tons of movies like that, but I was like, that's interesting. Like, how would you even shoot it? Like, how would you shoot a movie that perfectly? Maybe, you know what? Killer Joe might be one of those that they were like very finite and you only used what they had in front of them. But I thought that was interesting.
It's one of the only movies too that the first 35, 40 minutes are so like action packed, epic, like suspenseful on the edge of your seat. And then the tail of the movie, the rest of it, I mean, it's just this like somber kind of piece of this man trying to find redemption.
Yeah.
And I mean, I like that because like that's kind of like what drinking is like you're having all this so much fun, everything's just wild and crazy, and you're having a great time, but like afterwards, man, like there's a fucking downer on the other end of that.
It was a long hangover the rest of the movie, and the first was that you're basically coked up, flying a plane in your brain, the upside down, which I'm sure that there are plenty of articles that that dictate you cannot do that with a plane of that size other than maybe a few seconds, but we won't go into the details there. Yes, it's outrageous, but it's not, it's, besides the point of this, I'm not a Neil deGrasse Tyson science nerd to that level. But with that being said, it was like you're drugged up to some extent. You're high on coke,
this
amped
adrenaline
up.
high,
You could pretty much fly a plane backwards and land it, and he does. Then he thinks he's going to be okay, and ultimately
I connected hard with that scene because I remember wrecking my car, and I remember being like, "Did you notice how he wasn't scared? He was never scared. He just kind of controlled because he was high as a kite, And I remember wrecking my car and literally not being like phased by it while it was happening. I was just like, I'm going to ride this out, Like, it was just a great representation of that.
Well, people quantifiably actually are less injured while drunk and driving than people who are not.
Because they're not tensing up.
Yeah, there's no tension.
Yeah.
And so that's actually extremely common for like, it's a common theme. But one thing I actually want to, two other dumb facts. The same license plate up from the General Lee was utilized in one of the license plates when he was leaving Nicole's apartment. Odd fact. And then lastly, the moment where I think it was a Kettle One where he got drunk basically the night before, his last time effectively. And the bottle is like the airplane bottle, and there's like 50, maybe 100 airplane bottles in the refrigerator, and he sets it on top of the refrigerator, and it just sits there for like 6 or 7 seconds, and then he swipes
and then
it,
the hand just comes
in.
in.
Ring.
What a great shot!
Great shot. Where I was like, clearly he's about to grab this. Like, but where does this go? We know what's next. We know it's tomorrow, but how drunk is he possibly going to be? And then he's waking up in his own vomit. I understand the reason that they're asking old John Goodman to come save the day to some extent, but it's kind of like, so it's to some extent, I would actually like him to have not shown up, and to go a different way and path for that movie, because it's like, it's kind of aiding the drug conversation again and the addiction conversation again of like, oh yeah, just add some coke to it if you're drunk and you'll be all right.
It's interesting that the pilots association or whatever that's kind of like backing him, even Don Cheadle, the lawyer, like that are trying to save face, they will do anything in their power to get this man sober in front of people and just speak the company line. And whether that means him regressing back to drugs, alcohol, cocaine, just to get him ready and raring to go, they'll stoop to that level because they don't care about him. No. They don't.
I mean, there's a lot of money on the line. To be honest, I understand their perspective.
So union contract was on the line. It sounds like
I would do the same. I mean, I would be in this, if I'm in that situation, I would be like, get the man some cocaine. It's like
protect your own interests.
I
like when John Goodman says, "It's your turn. You want some?" Yeah. And they're like, absolutely not.
Pay the man. Yeah, but it's interesting not to shit on Flight as a movie perspective, because this is like the first time we're having one of these. And we've talked about a running podcast where we've had a guest and we talked to somebody else as well, but like a more serious like podcast. So it's just because I'm talking poorly about flight doesn't mean I don't want to talk poorly about recovery, but like I watched this when it first came out, I want to say, and I have like a top 500 list, and it was way higher up on my list the first time than the second time, and I was wondering why that was. Still haven't figured it out yet, but I don't want to say I rated it poorly, but I definitely didn't rate it as highly as I did the first watch. Maybe it resonated too much with me the second time. Who knows? But still a good
I mean,
movie. Denzel.
as an overall movie, really, really well shot and constructed. I think the CGI was great. I mean, we can go into the ratings later, but
Yeah, we can.
one thing that kind of fell flat for me was that just kind of that relationship uh, with the main kind of love interest who was also dealing with addiction. I just never bought it, and maybe it was just the dynamic between the two. But I did like that scene, and I think I had a conversation with Alex before this about the stairwell scene, and I think that's kind of where the movie hinged.
Yeah.
What do you think, Alex?
Oh yeah. I think that, John, to use your word, the whole movie is figuratively about um, a religious aspect to recovery, and I think that in that stairwell scene, which is a whole like what did I say? It's like a Hitchcockian symbolism. The staircase is always, it's usually at the end of the movie, everyone's on a staircase because that's the elevation of the soul or the elevation of the mind kind of thing Hitchcock always wanted to do. But instead, in this, you're kind of in the beginning of the prologue to the movie's done. They both are fucked up. They both have decided they're going to go on this road, and now the roads are converging in this stairwell. And then next thing you know, death comes up. Might be a cancer patient, but he even almost on the nose, and that was kind of I kind of didn't like that a little bit. It's a little too on the nose that he's supposed to be a personification or representation of death. And he says, everybody thinks when you're about to die, you have this clarity or whatever. And he looks at her, asks her for a cigarette, um, and it was just so on the nose. Clearly, these are the way that these two people are dealing with their own mortality, death in a sense. He says he looks at Denzel and he goes, it's funny. Some people they see me and they just try to ignore me, and some people they see me and they just want to know. Like I think he says something like what I'm going to do next, or they're just real curious about me, that kind of thing. And then Denzel, he asks her for a cigarette. She gives it to him. She's hoping he'll go away. And then Denzel throws him a whole pack. And I can see that the way that addiction is working with him is it's his ego. It's his ego is like, I've got a bunch of packs. Don't worry. You take this back down to hell with everybody else and say, this is what I got. This is what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Here you go, Death. Fucking smoke, have a smoke up a chimney. You guys go party with whatever. And I thought that it was a really good representation. I think the whole movie is a figurative imagination about the descent of madness that somebody has through their addiction and then trying to get out at the very end, And like I said, usually Hitchcock would have that kind of thing at the end of the movie, and they did it right at the very beginning of it. It was, I think I actually liked this movie a lot more the second time around. I'm not gonna lie,
Oh wow.
I really did.
I'm only
I hope that
speaking
answered your
from
question.
the reference. Yeah,
Yeah,
reference point
absolutely.
of a movie. That's all.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
But
this movie. I mean, not even just that scene, but there was a ton of like religious imagery. I mean, he flies the plane to a church, and there's a field of worshipers
Yeah.
in white gowns. I even read this whole fan theory that Denzel actually died in the plane, and the whole movie is an allegory of him going through purgatory and meeting all of these people and things like that. And you can read into that any which way you want. Because of these religious elements in the film, but it's pretty interesting how that works.
Here's your manifest of 144 souls. It's like,
They don't call them heads or people or bodies or whatever. It's souls. Yeah.
yep, yeah. It was really the imagery, the whole dialogue It was spot on. It was great. It was great, especially as somebody that's been in these rooms of recovery. Like they touched on a lot of really cool points that made a lot of sense. The way that they used their words real wisely. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good, man.
Anyways,
So Smashed, my friend.
Yeah, let's get
Wanna hit
Smashed.
up?
I mean, let's get into Smashed.
No, let's not.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Smashed, another movie. These were both 2012. Interesting enough, we didn't plan that out, but
Oh wow.
two movies about recovery coming out at 2012. This is a little bit lower budget, directed by James Ponsoldt, and it stars Aaron Paul, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Nick Offerman, and Octavia Spencer. Really good cast. The box office and budget were pretty much equal, $500,000 each. So it didn't really make its money back, but it did pretty good on the festival circuit. Quick runtime of 81 minutes, and Rotten Tomatoes is 83%. And here's the basic plot. It follows the tumultuous journey of Kate. She's a young elementary school teacher whose life spins out of control due to her heavy drinking. Initially, she seems like she has it all together, great job, loving husband, but her party lifestyle begins to unravel when she finds herself in a precarious situation at school. As Kate grapples with the consequences of her addiction, she faces a difficult choice. Does she continue down a path of self-destruction, or does she confront her demons and seek sobriety? So the film juxtaposes moments of dark humor with raw emotional honesty, exploring the struggles of love, dependence, and the search for redemption. And it was funny. It was a touching movie, kind of bittersweet. And I thought it treated the topic of recovery and addiction in a really honest light.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I texted you, Alex, when I saw it. It's like this film feels honest because the writers of this movie, they wrote about their own experiences going through this process of getting sober and going to AA meetings and trying to change their life. And they felt that there wasn't really any movies that they said that they felt like every other movie before felt like almost like a preachy public service announcement about alcoholism, rather than like this is actual what real humans have to go through and like what they're dealing with. And I thought that was pretty cool.
yeah,
Especially for the fact that I like how she's a teacher, and it makes it much more real, opposed to somebody who's maybe they're a bartender, maybe they're somebody else, but a teacher actually and a woman. I really appreciated the fact that that's like the main character. That is the main character, and throughout, just seeing the struggles and tribulations of going back and forth. I think to start off with that is it's powerful.
Yeah, and I really really liked how this movie opened. You're basically thrown into their life. They wake up and she's pissed the bed, and you kind of see that this couple has
fucking been there. Sorry.
they love each other, but their love has come through them being in their early teens and 20s and partying and like relying on this booze as a connection almost between the two.
Yeah.
And
It's a raft. It's a big raft.
Exactly. She wakes up, I mean, and she's hungover, but the first thing she does is like while she's taking a shower is rips a little bit from the bottle from the night before. And she drives to work and has a couple swigs from her flask and goes into work. And we still haven't got the title sequence yet. She's teaching her class. She goes and throws up. The kids think she's pregnant because that's probably what they know. They've seen their mom do that.
Yeah.
So she says, "Yeah, I'm pregnant." Gets sent home. Still no title sequence. She goes to a bar, drunk karaoke, drinks some more, finds this lady sitting outside, offers a ride home, and then she smokes crack with her. And this is the devolving of like why she wants to stop. It's not the crack smoking, it's her drinking so much that she makes this awful choice to do that. She wakes up outside in an alley, has to run back to her car, and then we get the title sequence like 15, 20 minutes in. I love that. I thought it was great.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great intro. One in which that, when you do get drunk enough, consistently enough on 3 or 4 day benders, it's kind of how it feels, just continuing down that path.
Making bad decisions, like just
terrible,
not even thinking about it.
Terrible decisions. And then all your money's gone. And yeah, it's and you wake up under a bridge.
Yeah, I've never done that. I've never woken up like outside.
had many
For
friends do that. Many
Yeah, so
friends.
have I.
Oh
To be
yeah,
honest, recently, I mean, we have a close friend. You know, yeah, still doing it at 40. With that being said,
yeah. It's
it's rough.
that movie. Yeah, it definitely it put a lot of things into perspective when it comes to like those early days of trying to quit drinking. Obviously, not when you're going up against the freaking FAA or anything. You know, it's like this is a personal journey somebody
Yeah,
has with it's a personal journey she has with avoiding dishonesty because you know it all started with a freaking lie, you know, this whole thing and embarrassing and having to lie to children, you know, and then lie to your
yeah,
boss who feels sorry for you because she can't even have her own kids and she's jealous, you know, and then she gets caught by was it what is his name, Nick Offerman, is that his name, the actor?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
Yeah,
well, his character's name is Dave Davies, but yeah, that's Nick
Dave
Offerman.
Davies. Yeah. And so Dave, who in real life is married to the principal, is funny. Uh, you know, he catches her, and he ends up being the one that kind of saves her in a way. It says, "Come to AA," and then he ends up being the creep, which is
yeah. No, he plays an like I don't know. 10 minutes into the creepiness, basically, it's like flowing over me, and I was like, he plays a really good creep. Like this is
yeah,
like I feel legitimately creeped out. I can't imagine being in that particular situation. So I'm glad you started immediately off with it. I probably wouldn't have asked that question of like, hey, have you been a creep too, Alex? What do you do
yeah.
when they call? But I'm glad you offered the
Okay,
information up. But I'm like, dude, like you gotta have some sort of standard to be, like
yeah.
somebody else take this. And he played the best creep. I know it's acting, but
So
it's like it made me feel uncomfortable.
I think what they were trying to portray, I think the writers were trying to portray a rule that you learn in the early days of AA, which I got uh, obviously didn't follow. I actually ended up kind of seeing somebody that I met in AA, you know, and they were like, "Hey, this is really frowned upon. You shouldn't do this." And really, whatever, man, we like this, you know. But yeah, that's a strict rule. And it's a great guideline too because these people are vulnerable. You're vulnerable. You're here to be vulnerable. You're here to
Yeah,
talk about things, and you shouldn't at the risk of your own recovery, of your own sobriety, you should not be letting yourself be put into a dangerous place for your vulnerability to be taken advantage of. And you shouldn't be doing that to someone else. It's called 13th stepping. Um, so I think his intentions were good. I think that his intentions by calling himself out, being like, I need you to know this about me because I have to be fucking honest with you because I am starting to pick up that some feelings. I've picked up some feelings and I don't know what to do with them. He probably could have left out the whole moist thing.
yeah,
You know, like he caught like, you know, and then and I think that
yeah,
they wrote it to be where it could be written off, but that needed to be something that people that are watching it and wondering about what recovery is like, because that's real. And that's something that you never really hear about, you never see in these movies. It's always like, you know, so and so goes to rehab and all the men and women are in the same thing. I'm like, I don't know if that's always the case. I think they usually split everybody up because they don't want people, you know, doing it in rehab, you know, like that's
yeah,
a
yeah.
simple rule. Was it? I remember saying to Steven, I wanted to watch a movie for this 28 days, and I rewatched it last weekend, and I was like, "There's no way I can do this. This is the most unrealistic movie ever." But this is real. This is yeah. Smashed really portrayed the whole thing right by putting that in there because that's an honest thing. That is an honest thing that I think most people deal with the first few weeks of trying to go through this thing because in a nutshell, a lot of people end up getting kicked out of AA because you find out they're there just to get laid. That's what they're trying to do. And they have to weed those fucking people out fast. You don't want them around. You don't want predators, you know? You don't, if you're trying to be if you're trying to be that guiding light for people just to be able to smash, yeah, it's impossible. It's impossible to try to date and with people that you're meeting in that program or any program. You've got to be responsible, and I think that his
So,
intentions were good, but did not come
so
across that way.
Wedding Crashers Part 2 via the Alcoholics Anonymous group is not going to come next.
Not going to come next. No. God, what a great movie too. Did you ever do that one? Sorry.
We haven't
No,
done that
we
one
haven't.
yet. No.
Steven doesn't like funny movies. He just likes.
That's not true.
He just likes
That's not true at all.
serious movies. He can't get into like things that,
Whatever.
Yeah, his brainwaves are too big for this podcast.
A Vince Vaughn versus Vince Vaughn movie would be great.
That's a good idea. I like this.
Yeah. A serious Vince Vaughn versus a comedic Vince Vaughn. Yeah.
Write that down.
He actually has some very good serious roles.
Yeah,
he does. Another thing that I liked about this movie was, or that I struggled with, and I guess it's true. Like this is a married couple with Aaron Paul and Kate, and he doesn't even really try to tamper his drinking or stop it.
Not even like remotely.
He's just going to continue to live his life like he did when they went to go see his mom. Like there was a Bloody Mary sitting in front of him, and he was eyeing it for sure. He was eyeing it, but he had some willpower there. But he wouldn't change his life, and she was growing as a new person, and he was staying the same. And they obviously grew apart from that. But like, I mean, Alex, what do you think? Like, I don't know if your girlfriend drinks or not, but
Becca will have a glass of wine. She'll have a glass of wine or something. She doesn't like being drunk, And I remember when we first started dating, she was like, "Do you mind if I have a glass of wine?" And I remember I said, "Why? Because I'm paying for it." I was like, I don't care. I was like, I have a glass of wine. That was great, No, she was really, really like, if I told her, "Hey, I'd like, can we not drink?" And I've never done that. I've never said, "Please don't drink." No, I mean, and I think that was something that the writers were trying to portray in their relationship too, is that being in recovery is being in recovery. And it's truly, and John, you asked me in the very beginning, like, did you have to just completely break up with your friend group? Some people end up breaking up with their significant others. There are some things psychologically, therapeutically, that you're going to have to unlearn with your relationship with your significant other. Like and by unlearn, I mean, you might have to, like I said earlier, you have to learn to love yourself again before you can love someone else, I guess. You have to rebuild that relationship with who you are and get to understand what it means to be Alex, what it means to be John, what it means to be Steven. You have to remember what that is, because if you have a problem with drinking and you have a problem with being caught in reality, and it's especially if the longer it's been, you're gonna have to go back to the beginning and really retrace your steps. And you may find yourself, being like, "This is not my beautiful house. This is not my beautiful wife. What the fuck have I done?" Like I want to start back over, and regrow. You got to rip the tree out and replant your roots somewhere else, And I do not advocate for anybody who's going into recovery to set the intention of, "Oh, I'm going to break up with my wife or leave my family." If anything, you're supposed to get a recovery so that you can rebuild those relationships. But there is an initial first step of it, which is finding out who you are. And if this person does not want to hop into the game, then it's up to you to eventually know when to call it off, call it quits. They mention at a certain point when she's trying to get him to get sober, and they start talking about things, and he's like, "What do you mean the stability that I've provided by buying this house?" And then you learn that his parents bought them that house, And it's like, like shut up, Paul. Like it's your parents bought you this house. Like this is just a raft. This is your parents have just been enabling us in your dream, and that's just, and I think in a sense she feels like she's probably been hanging on to his security because she had no security. Look where she came from, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and man, I could dive into the talk about her mom too. That could hit home with anybody that's had a troubling relationship with their parents. Her mom was like, I'm gonna get drunk and blame dad for leaving us. So what did she do when that person left that I guess supported them and gave them stability? She went and hopped off and found somebody else at a young age who could, and is Aaron Paul, who could give her stability in her life, and so much stability caused by money, which is also another addiction to some people. Um, yeah, that's what they did. That she just found somebody else she could rage with and not cope with the fact that she never sees her dad. Blah 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 blah. Same old story. Maybe it's a cliche, but it's the truth. You know, I
It is
saw
the
a lot
truth.
in that
Yeah.
movie too. Hope that helped. Sorry.
I have to point out.
Thanks.
I have to point out. 2012 Aaron Paul is like peak. Not to
Oh
say his
yeah.
not to say his career has gone to shit, but to say that's peak Aaron Paul. So it's
Yeah.
funny that this is my first watch of Smashed. I think I have a semblance of a memory that when this came out, because I think it was one of the first like films. Kind of, he was like, I know there was one he was driving. I don't even remember the name of it, but basically it
Yeah.
didn't do well. I can't remember that, but this was also in the mix of like his peak Breaking Bad days. But I'm shocked I didn't
It's
see
around the
this,
time
to
the
be
show
honest, because
ends.
I really like this character in Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's right, like
Yeah,
you said, peak. And
yeah, season
um,
5.
exactly. I want to talk about so she's being honest with herself. She's being honest with everybody else around her. She's probably like 3-4 months into AA meetings. She's got Octavia Spencer as her uh, contact sponsor, and there's that time where she has to confess to the principal about what really happened.
Oh my god.
And that, I think that's the scene that got me the most, because
Yeah,
the principal is asking her like, "What, are you sick?" And she's like, "No, I'm not sick." And then when she tells her that she's an alcoholic, the principal doesn't see that as an excuse for what she did or anything like
yeah,
that. Like it's basically just throwing her to the curb. Um, and I just thought, like, there's people out there that don't treat this thing like this recovery process and like becoming a new person, like as something that that's justifiable for previous actions. And it just really hurt. And uh, I don't know, like, what did you feel like from that scene, Alex?
Oh, I felt like she could have worded it better. She could have been like, "I'll be completely honest with you. I am so sorry." She should have apologized. That's almost like a part of making amends with somebody. Is like, I want to make amends with you. I've done something horrible to you, and I need forgiveness. And to say that's what I'm saying, not be like, not in a way that would make that person feel stupid for believing you. Um,
Right.
they it was written in a way to where you knew what was going to happen. And I was like, yeah, I remember when she fired her on the spot, I was like, I don't think that would have happened. I think she probably just would have been like, I'm going to need you to
yeah,
take a few days off. Like, there's
yeah,
no,
yeah.
We're gonna
that's
make a decision on this. Yeah.
right. And getting fired, I mean, it's very much like the scene in Flight when he looks up and he goes, she didn't drink. It was me. I'm the one who drank it. It's like, and except the person that was asking him the questions didn't feel stupid. I think they all kind of knew what was going on, right? Because they're all part of this same system that agrees, hey, we've got to keep this union contract. That's the reason. That's why we're just gonna slap you in the wrist if we can, and we'll talk about the criminal stuff later. Let's get let's sit here and talk about the plane. There was no
Yeah.
plane. You fucked up. You're the one who came in drunk. You're the one who came in. You threw up in front of some kids. You lied to them. Now these kids know what an abortion is. Now they're talking about it. You know, we gave you a party about a fake baby. We all feel stupid. Um, I thought that the way that she came about with honesty, that was, you know, I guess I couldn't say the real first step in her recovery, but that was the first time that she told somebody that really needed to hear it that she was an alcoholic. And think if she had said that in the very beginning, if she'd been like, I told the kids I'm pregnant. I'm an idiot. I'm so sorry. I went out and I got drunk last night. I'm stupid, blah, blah, blah. And I threw up in front of the kids. I should have just called in. Insane. There is no movie. The whole movie, both movies are about a lie. Both movies are about a lie that somebody's telling. And originally a lie maybe they're telling to themselves, but for the sake of the movie that they're trying to cover up, right? They're trying to cover up this lie. And she finally is honest about it with the person who matters. And then here comes their sentence. Here comes her judgment. Here comes it is. That's the whole point of being honest and/or having to say you're sorry to people that you've wronged or that you may have slighted or you may have lied to, is to get your punishment, is to get your redemption. So that's why Denzel's happy in the end. That's why she's happy after a year of finally being sober, is because she's finally like, I am free. I'm free of that shit. I'm free of the lies. I'm free of the hold that party lifestyle had on me, right? No more bullshit. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be Dave Davies. Hey, I need you to know that I'm a creep. That I've got a huge crush on you. I need you to know this because this is where it's going to matter the most, right? That's why I love both these movies, man. I did. They're both great. They both portrayed it really well. You talk about it forever.
I mean, that was also her trigger of like the first thing she did was when she left the school after being fired is she went to a bar and got, double whiskey neat.
Yeah.
And that was a trigger for her. Like,
you worked in restaurants.
You don't think so?
That was not a double.
Three fingers?
That wasn't three. Dude, that was a fill line. That's 2 ounces. In Tennessee, it's 1.5 ounces a shot. Sorry.
I had a comment here on the. I don't know how this is going to go over, but the seriousness of, first of all, that abortion conversation was like, my God, like the awkwardness that I felt inside in that conversation of like, and that you were talking about the seriousness, Stephen, about how alcoholism, like, this isn't an excuse. Like, no. Like, this is not something to hang your hat on. This is nothing. And it reminds me of that Mitch Hedberg joke of like, hey, I can't remember the guy's name he used, but like, this is Marty, the alcoholic. And like, it's not the same as like, this is Marty who has lupus. And I still think in some areas of life we don't think of addiction as the same level. I granted, I'm not trying to downplay lupus here or even upplay, I guess, alcoholism, but addiction is very serious to the extent that, we can lose our lives just as you can with any lupus. But I think in the seriousness of that situation, it could have been in real life, it could have been handled much better and more appropriately, opposed to being like, no, you're gone. That's it.
Well, and I think in that scene, her intent was not to actually open up and say that, but it just kind of happened because that's how she felt and that's how she was dealing with things, with being honest. So, I mean, it's hard to say the right words and put the right thing out there when you just want to be honest with somebody.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that is fair. And she is the head person in charge. I have to ask the question at the end of the movie: do they get back together?
I don't think so. I think we would have to see some kind of semblance of like him wanting to grow as a person, and not even like I don't think so.
I understand why the ending is the way it is. I would hate if there was an extension of 5 minutes of this movie and they get back together. But I definitely don't believe that she hasn't taken that many steps. Well, first of all, it's a movie. She hasn't taken that many steps to write her own life. And I would hope with all of my hopes that I have left in my own hopeful life that she does not get back together with him, because I would imagine the same path is ready and available to her. And she's gone down that road, and who wants to do that again? Acting
is tough. I mean, we know that in regards of just actors and things like that, but acting drunk on film, that's really difficult. Who do you think was the better drunk actor? I mean, it could be anybody that was actually drinking in any of these movies. What do you think?
So
Like between the
I
two movies, or just
I
in
can't believe
Smashed?
No, any of the movies. I mean, Denzel's Denzel. He's amazing. But
Denzel killed it, man.
what
A
did you think?
coked out, drunk and bloated, knocked it. I mean, like it was perfect. Uh, I think Aaron Paul did uh, a really good version of drunk him. Um, I think that she played being cracked out remarkably well. When the scene when she smokes crack,
Oh yeah, she's just
yo,
talking fast.
I was like, yo, this chick has actually smoked crack. I was like, it's like this is real. I've been around crackheads. I used to bartend on Main Street, like in Memphis. It's a big anyway, And I'm like, I know what crackheads sound like. That's a fucking crackhead, like. But as far as like being drunk and just being sloppy, yeah, she did pretty good. But dude, when she played being cracked out, that was lifelike. That was
That
really
was
good.
next level.
Yeah.
I it's really escaping me. I've just seen a movie as of recently, like literally 2 weeks ago, that I was dumbfounded on how well this woman played being drunk, and I kept repeating it. Like, I can't believe how astounding she is. And for whatever it's worth, I cannot recall both the movie and the human. I'm just I'm gonna get past this, but it's angering me. But yeah, I think I
Think
think
comes to being 40. Yeah.
Aaron Paul's was the worst, I would have to say, and Denzel, especially, I would say, in the situation which I've seen in many bachelor parties, of getting coke after being completely and utterly wasted for a long period of time. That is real. That's a real life happening. That
How some people can just like light up.
Yeah.
not I would say not that quickly, but it's pretty fucking drastic of a change that you could have. Um, and the way he was able to do it, I would say Denzel was definitely the best. I think maybe he's either seen it or he's possibly done it himself, but from the sound of it, he doesn't drink at all. But yeah, pretty good. Aaron Paul the worst.
I mean, I think Aaron Paul. We've just seen him so much in the Breaking Bad kind of drugged up meth head.
Maybe, yeah.
It's a role that he kind of gravitates towards in film. So I don't know, but yeah, I thought Mary Elizabeth Winstead was really good, really good. Cool. That's kind of all I have about Smash. I mean, like I said, it was a very interesting watch. Like I thought it was going to be a lot more somber in tone, but I did like some of the comedic, writing and elements that kind of filtered through, because life isn't always life. Life can be funny in tragic situations and messed up situations. So
I love Nick
Oh, yeah.
Offerman. He's able to play Parks and Rec character to a T, and then just a creep here. He's got a bit of range to him. I like it. Not the creepy side, to be clear, everyone. How about we get to ratings? Have we done ratings? Are we doing ratings here?
yeah, I got my ratings.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, do you? So I'm going to go with Flight first. Regrettably, I know, Alex, you are disagreeing with me here, but with that being said, I did have this much higher on my top 100 list, and if anything, I would say this is well outside of it now. But I'll give them both at the same time. How about that? So I would say they're fairly equal, but 82.4 for Flight and 82.7 for Smash. I thought Smash was overall better, but I think the performance really of Denzel kind of upped the value of Flight. The fact that I don't know why it is, the fact that it's doing a loop de loo is ridiculous. In the first 20 minutes, I think it could have tamed itself down a little bit for a variety of reasons. I don't want to be nitpicky here, but Smashed overall was like bang on from the beginning and bang on at the end. And it just like consistent. It was very consistent, like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The music as well, I felt like really gave a nice uptick to the feeling of what they were trying to portray. I liked Smash better.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with you. This was only the second time that I watched Flight, and I enjoyed it a lot. Like I said, I felt like the love story kind of in the middle there. It didn't need to be a love story. It could have just been more of a friendship, and I think that would have been a little bit better. But yeah, 82.35 for Flight, and I like Smash a lot. I thought the writing was good. I thought the just the overall tone of it was great, and I gave that at 86.7. And this is out of 100, obviously.
Yeah, Yeah,
Cool.
we're back to being somewhat in agreement.
Question for you, Alex.
Yeah.
You kind of told me this a little bit, but you started off going to AA, but then you're not doing that anymore. Is that something that you dropped off?
Yeah, I did it the first like year and a half or so. Um, I'd say like
Okay.
the first few months, like literally like 3 months, I was in it hard. I had the big book and I read and I don't know. You know, I did all that and then really I just started kind of I don't know, the religious part of it kind of turned me off. Um,
Wait, there's a religious part to AA?
It's like the higher being, the higher self,
the
right?
higher
Oh,
power, yeah.
okay. I was
The
like,
higher power. And
dude,
it's a lot
where
of
have I fucking
yeah, yeah. Part of it's giving yourself to God or a higher power. I'm pretty sure that
yeah,
came
yeah,
in
yeah.
later. So the religious part kind of turned me off, but I did pick up a lot of good tools for keeping myself, like
Nice.
the addict's loop, the addict mind, that kind of stuff. And I think that's one thing they were trying to portray in Smashed too, actually, was that, a lot of people, they go through the 12 steps, and you would think if you're not somebody who's ever been in those programs or those rooms, that that's when it's over, you're done. You go back to the first step. You go back to the first step, and it's a cycle. What they're trying to do is to get you
Just do
to
it over
keep,
again.
yeah, do it over again. You find, you do a moral inventory, you go through, then step four is pretty much where I kind of stopped, and I just started going to meetings, and I'd be like, I'm just here to listen. And step four, the moral inventory, and then it's like once you get to step 12, these people are like, and this is another big part of AA, is they say don't rest on your laurels. Are y'all familiar with this term?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Don't rest on your accomplishments. Don't Okay, you've been sober a year. Now what? Go out, find other people that are addicts, tell them what you've been through. And it's just like the gospels, go out and teach my word to other people, blah 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 blah, Jesus eat this,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
that's a big part of AA, is copy and paste, drag and drop. It's go out and find more people, give them these tools, give them these things, and it means so well. But yeah, I gave up on it after a while. I haven't been to a meeting in shit, man, probably 2 years, and I feel bad about it. Actually, after watching uh one of these movies, I was like, God, I wonder how that one meeting's going now. Like, there was this one. There's this one meeting that was pretty much run by kind of a power couple in AA. They didn't. I don't think they even met in AA. I think they got sober together. They would have been like Aaron Paul and Kate in in the perfect world. And I'm like, damn, I wonder how that meeting's going, if it's still a thing, because it's a tight knit community, that kind of thing, of people that are supporting each other. And it would have been rough to all of a sudden go to that meeting and be like, mom and dad aren't together anymore. It's like, what the fuck do I do now?
Oh,
Oh wow,
son.
yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's
yeah.
like,
Oh,
hold on a
You go to
second.
hot yoga is what you do.
Yeah, fuck
yeah.
you. Yeah, no, you're right though. You're right. Yeah, and that's the thing, is we're all here to learn different and better coping mechanisms, man. That's what the whole thing's about. I hate to make it sound
Yeah,
so
yeah.
black and white and scientific, but you know, uh,
It
you
is.
have to
Oh,
you have to it's serious. It really is. You have to program your brain with a lot of things. And that's this is Stephen uh, earlier when we were gearing up. I think a lot of people that have substance addiction and abuse, I think it can stem from things when they're kids, and might be one of the first people that took me seriously as somebody who was trying to quit drinking said to me, they're like, towards the end somewhere, when you're fully starting to feel kind of healed from this, you're going to realize a lot of this has to do with sex. And I was like, shit, that there's like, that might be the reason I'm here, is because I never had a good relationship with that kind of with relationships or with sex in general, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And it makes me think of how both of these movies, they're in some kind of relationship, and they have the long lasting relationship that's been around booze that has probably kept them together in Smashed. And then you have these two people that figuratively death, the guy, the cancer patient says, he goes, you guys don't think that you're here for one reason, and it's because you both have issues with this kind of thing? You don't think that's why you're here? Okay, whatever. And they both paid their toll. They both paid their fee to get him to fuck off and go back to wherever he came from. Pardon my French. I don't know how you feel about cussing. I'm sorry. She gives him a cigarette. He gives him a pack.
You can cuss all you want.
Yeah. And she gives him a cigarette, hopes he'll leave her alone. He gives him a cigarette. He gives him a pack and says, go tell everybody there's more where that came from, basically, And that's, both couples have a relationship. And you can see how when it comes to sex in Smashed, that they're not on the same wavelength anymore, right? And then in Flight, he basically treats her like a prostitute and says, come massage me. She makes kind of I think it's a sexual related innuendo. I'm going to massage you here because it's good for blood flow, that kind of thing, And it's this total fabricated, built around booze, two adults kind of realizing that it's not a real relationship. And the other one, they're realizing their relationship
Denzel
isn't
even
real. Sorry.
Yeah, and even Whitaker has a failed relationship, and it's alluded to is probably because he was an alcoholic and he couldn't maintain a relationship with his wife, and he doesn't have a relationship with his kid.
Yeah.
That was hard for me, the kid situation of like, oh, you're the man of the house now, and like he goes to kind of, if anyone's ever been in that situation that wants to punch somebody and then you just hug them really, really hard, and affect your kid. That's what he was doing. That was tough. Good performance by Denzel, but that was tough to watch, man. Anyway, I have to go. I'm late to taking care of my child at the moment.
Hey,
okay,
Alex, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast and just chatting it up with us, man. I really appreciate it.
It's good to open up about some stuff, man. You guys, thank you for letting me share. I guess you'd say that to somebody at a meeting. You'd say thank you for sharing, which is another good movie about addiction. Thank you for sharing with Mark Ruffalo.
All right, I'll check it out.
Nice. I don't think I've seen it, actually.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Alex. Right. Pleasure, my man.
Holler, guys.
Right.
Peace.
Take care.